Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Next Business Bestie. My name is Jen Waybor Hart, and I'm your host. This week, I am joined with Jordan, all the way from Costa Rica. Hi, Jordan. How are you?
Hello, good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Jordan and I have kind of come within each other's circles for the last several years, first at Cambio and then at Balanced. So we've been connected for years, but we've never really spent a lot of time one on one. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you do, but even more so your story of all of how it came to be. So Jordan, why don't you tell everybody kind of overarching what is it that you do?
Right, I know that's such a great question. Well, I'll kind of tell it in a nutshell, but basically, yes, hi, I'm Jordan, and thanks again for having me. I entered really into the yoga space in 2010. I was a cheerleader, and so I entered yoga for more of like a physical restoration, more of that, I guess, stretching or conditioning you hear of. And actually, my first yoga class was at Cambio. It was a hot yoga class. I was 14 years old, and as you probably know, you're not supposed to practice hot yoga unless you're 16. So I fibbed and entered, but the rest is kind of history. No, I practiced on and off for about 7 years. And then I really kind of hit the ground running in 2017. I was super unhealthy emotionally, physically, mentally, and yoga kind of became my safe haven, as it does for many. And so I started practicing really, really consistently. And then after college, I went to school in Boulder. I have an undergrad in marketing. I moved back to Colorado Springs, got a job in tech, started practicing again at Cambio. And then, yeah, heard about yoga teacher training and kind of just followed the call, did my 200 hour, and then went right into my 300 hour the following January. So 200 intensive, 300, 10 months. Didn't really think I was going to teach, kind of just wanted to know more for my own personal spirituality. I came, like I said, for the physical, but I really stayed for the mental and emotional. But then fell in love with teaching. And then I quit my corporate job 2 years ago to kind of spend more time on yoga. But I also teach the fertility awareness method. Kind of got into that when birth control kind of failed me in many ways and I wasn't happy with
Mhm.
it. So, fertility awareness method is all about tracking your cycle to prevent pregnancy or gain pregnancy, attain pregnancy. But yeah, and then I also do Reiki. So have some retreats coming up as well, but have been doing this more full time for the last 2 years. Yeah, super excited to be here. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Very cool. Yeah, so many of us have similar yoga stories. I mean, my first class was at a CrossFit gym in Maine, and it was totally just for the workout part of yoga, and it's almost
Mhm.
like it traps you, like, right? So all of us that are getting into it for something just physical, yoga shows up and is like, but wait, there's so much more. And then we all do yoga teacher training and think we're never going to teach, and then end up teaching a bunch of classes and falling in love with it and moving to Costa Rica. Uh, so let's talk about your retreats to start, because you do have a retreat coming up in Colorado, correct? When is that? Give us all the details on that retreat in
Yeah,
Colorado.
yeah. Thank you so much. So yeah, I really wanted to start offering retreats as kind of a dive deeper into yoga, but also just wellness and restoration, right? So my goal for this retreat was to have a weekend. So people who work, and they can't take a lot
Mm,
of time off or they don't have a lot of financial resources, they can still have that kind of reset and rejuvenation just in that short time frame. So it's
yeah.
only Friday through a Sunday, August 22nd through the 24th in Divide, Colorado. I'm really excited. I'm partnering with another yoga instructor who's from Old Colorado City, Maggie. And we're going to just have a weekend of a bunch of yoga and some hiking. There's a bunch of lakes by the river or by the Airbnb that we're staying at. We have some chefs that'll come in. But yeah, kind of think yoga twice a day. There's going to be some sound baths, yin and vinyasa flow, and then that mindfulness hike, like I said. So it'll be a great weekend. I'm super excited for it. We're about half sold out right now, but
Awesome.
yeah, I'm just excited to, yeah, have a weekend with women and share so much as well.
Yeah, Divide is such a pretty area that I don't even think of like retreats being in Divide, but it's like this little gem that you literally drive right through, right? On the way to the mountains, you just drive through Divide and don't even think about it.
Totally.
Um, How, how'd you get into retreats? Was it from attending retreats? Or I do want to say I love that you're doing it accessible for those that work and then financially accessible too, because it is hard. Like there's a million retreats out there. I was looking at one and then it was like $8,000. And that's just not, if you can do it, amazing. But it's so
Right.
nice to have options close to home for those of us in Colorado, a weekend. So it doesn't interfere with work and making that financially accessible too. But talk a little bit about how you got into retreats. What are you passionate that makes your retreats different besides the accessibility feature, of course?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So I've been teaching yoga now for about almost 6 years. 2018, I graduated. So almost 7 years actually. Wow. Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then I've been traveling a lot. So really, the main thing was I wanted to think of a way to connect with my students. With me not living in one area many times, or for a long period of time. So I have a lot of old students in Colorado I wanted to reconnect with. And then I've also taught, just guest taught at a bunch of different retreats. So I've done some yin yoga, some sound bath at some retreats down here in Costa Rica. And so just seeing, yeah, kind of the ins and outs of, oh, maybe I could do this. And everyone looks like they're having a great time. And, what are the qualifications? Or, yeah,
Yeah.
it just kind of felt like that next step in my yoga teacher journey. And being able to offer something, yeah, in Colorado. And Divide is so close to both Denver and Colorado Springs and not super far. We actually have some people signed up from New Mexico, which I thought was cool.
Cool.
It's only, I guess, 8 hours from where they're at. But yeah, so kind of just seeing guest training at other retreats and then just a way to connect with my old students as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Uh, what is it about your yoga journey? What was it that hooked you that made it more than a physical practice, more than a workout? What made you want to go deeper into practicing and then ultimately teaching and leading retreats?
Right, totally. Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I got into yoga with hot yoga, but then I think yin yoga is really what hooked me.
Mm.
And then, kind of that mindfulness aspect, like we talked about, the spirituality. I remember my first yin yoga class was in Boulder. And there was also a violinist who played at the same time, which was just
Ooh.
an extra special treat. But I just remember leaving and I felt so relaxed. Like my mind was, I don't know, like I struggle with anxiety. And I felt like for the first time in a while, I was just, calm. Like I
Mm.
didn't have all these racing thoughts. I was really able to like sit and breathe, and it felt so refreshing. So yeah, learning about different types of yoga hooked me because I think when you don't know a lot about yoga or you just see it from the mainstream, you do think this certain image of yoga. And so learning about all these other types, restorative, yin, all the things was just so eye-opening. But the mindfulness and yin, I would say definitely hooked me.
Yeah, yin is so interesting. I teach yin now, and as a student, yin is one of the hardest classes for me
Mhm.
because a lot of there's this misconception, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves when yin is advertised as a beginner class. And it can be all levels, just like vinyasa. My vinyasa classes are all levels, but yin is so challenging in a different way. And calming the monkey mind is where you're holding poses. For those that aren't active in the yoga community, yin, you hold poses for 3 to 5 minutes, and like it's challenging from a mindset standpoint, and like you can hold a pose for 3 to 5 minutes. Like for some people that sounds short, for some people that sounds really long. They are quote unquote simpler poses. I also hate that terminology, but you use a lot of props to hold up your body, but then it's quieting your mind and it's not thinking about the groceries you need to go buy or what you're going to make for dinner or that work to-do list, and actually quieting the mind. And I find that 10 times harder than any physical practice. And that's why
Mhm.
I wanted to teach it too, because one, to kind of change some of those misconceptions around yin, but also it's so important and so complementary to your vinyasa classes, to your hot classes, whatever.
Mhm.
It's the lunar side of it versus the solar side. So I totally agree. Yin is where I found I deepened my practice even a little bit more.
Mhm.
But giving people permission that, yeah, if you're accidentally thinking about your to-do list or your grocery list or whatever, bringing your mind back, and it's not about perfection, it's about the journey along the way. I think, like you were saying, we talk so much about vinyasa. We see the stereotypical yoga student in the United States, but there's just so much more to
Mhm.
it. And I have such love for Cambio for opening my eyes to all of that. I'm
Mhm.
actually going to have Amber and Austin on the podcast in a few weeks, which I'm
Oh,
really,
that's
really excited
awesome.
about.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Let's shift gears though. You mentioned briefly the fertility education side.
Mhm.
And that's part of what you do that I know very little about.
Right.
So kind of give us Reader's Digest version, and then we can dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, totally, totally. So, as I was teaching yoga, becoming more familiar with my body, etc., I had known for years that hormonal birth control just wasn't working right with me. I got on hormonal birth control originally when I was early teens for cramping and heavy periods, and then I stayed on for pregnancy prevention as I got older. But I tried so many different types, and I was just like migraines, aura headaches, like weight gain, acne, depression. I had suicidal ideation, like all like the whole thing. And I tried so many different types, and it was still constant. Nothing was working. So long story short, knew it wasn't working for me. I ended up going on the copper IUD, excuse me, because it was advertised non-hormonal. It wouldn't mess
Hmm.
up your hormones. It wouldn't, whatever. And I ended up getting pregnant on the hormonal IUD. Wasn't really given a lot of information. Ended up miscarrying when they removed the IUD. And so from that point forward, I dove into the fertility awareness method, excuse me. Someone had introduced it to me, another fellow yogi actually, and I didn't really believe in it. I didn't really, not that I didn't believe in it, but I was just like, is it actually accurate? Like what are the odds
Right.
it's accurate? Especially if I'd been on hormonal birth control for so many years, I was told that that was the safe way, that was the responsible thing to do. But after having a miscarriage on the copper IUD, I didn't really think I had much to lose. And
Oh,
so I did it, and I fell in love. So the
yeah.
fertility wellness method is just charting your cycles. So charting different fertile biomarkers, whether that's not to get too technical, but cervical position, basal body temperature, cervical mucus, just to tell you where you're at in your cycle. You can tell real-time fertility very easily. You can gauge hormone health. There's really only about 5 to 7 days women are fertile a month. So preventing pregnancy with this method has been scientifically studied to be as effective as the pill. But I've been trained through FEM, the Fertility Education and Medical Management. They're centered out of
Cool.
Ohio. And it's a group of OBGYNs who have done these studies and then trained women like myself to teach this method to other women. So practiced the method myself, learned from an instructor for about a year, and then I was just geeking out about it to my friends that I decided to become an instructor 3 years ago now in 2022. So
It's so if we had had this conversation a year and a half ago,
mhm.
so many of those things you just said, I would have been like, what the hell is Jordan talking about?
Yeah.
And so I went off from birth control June of 2024.
Mhm.
And because my husband and I decided we were going to try to have a baby, I'm just over 11 weeks pregnant today.
Congratulations.
But thank you. The second trimester is in sight. It's kind of crazy, but like I was so frustrated when I went off birth control at the lack of education there is for women around their bodies. Because I went on hormonal birth, the pill at 17, and
Mhm.
then hated it. Absolutely hated the pill, hated having to remember to take it. So I went on the Mirena IUD. I had one for 10 years up until June of 2024. And then when I went off from it, and I didn't even know about the different parts of our cycle. And that should be like basic. And I got so frustrated because it is the assumption if you want to prevent pregnancy, you go on birth control. And I do think unless you can really educate teenage girls, birth control has a place, but so does empowering women and girls about their bodies, which is this huge piece that we're missing in all of this. And like as a girl mom, I was like, man, when Elena gets older, I want to empower her to know about her body because we're basically taught either you go on birth control or you get pregnant.
Yeah.
Those are the two
Yeah.
paths in life. Like there's no other either or be celibate, right? That would be the
Right.
third.
Right. Like growing
But
up in Colorado Springs, abstinence was also heavily.
grew up just outside of Dallas, Texas. I was just
Yeah.
having this conversation this morning. Um, the not to go totally political today, but our I will never forget. I was in seventh grade. They brought us all into the library, and it was our sex education talk. And they had two Velcro gloves, and they were like, "This is Barbie, and this is Ken. And if Barbie and Ken date and fall in love, but they don't have sex, they'll fall in love." So for those of you listening and not watching, they brought the fingertips of the gloves together. And they're like, so when Barbie and Ken break up, it's heartbreaking, but they'll be okay. And you could hear the sound of the Velcro coming across. But they're like, if Barbie and Ken have sex and they smash the two gloves together, and they're like, and then they break up and their lives are destroyed. and that was our
Oh
sex education.
gosh. Oh
That
my God.
was that was
And that was
it. Yeah. And so, I mean, to your point of the 5 to 7 days, once you're actually trying to get pregnant,
Mhm.
it's infuriating how small a window there actually is.
Mhm.
Because especially as girls, we are raised to believe that if we have sex, we're gonna get pregnant. Like that it's only a matter of time. And really, it's a matter of science, of course, but it's a matter of chance.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're doing is incredible, my long-winded soapbox, because I mean, I'm 35 years old. So I started this journey at 34 and a half and realized I knew nothing about my body when it came to reproduction at all.
Yeah.
Like truly knew the tip of the iceberg. And I self-taught myself a lot.
Mhm.
Um, because even the doctor's office, when I got my IUD out, I was like, what do I need to do? Like, should we do blood tests? Because I'm 34. And they're like, no, not until you're 35. And I was like, okay, 6 months makes that big a difference. Like, oh, now it's going to matter. But there
Gosh.
were no resources through the doctor's office to learn all of these things.
Yeah.
And like, I just think it's so empowering. So, what does it look like for clients that want to work with you when it comes to fertility? What are your offerings there?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just want to say first, if it's okay to backtrack a little bit, like
Totally.
I relate so much about not being so frustrated about not knowing about my body.
Yeah.
So many women I work with too. So if you're listening and you relate to that as well, like you're not alone. So many women literally, like I was 26 when I started this journey, and I was like, I don't know anything about my cycle either. I didn't know what a luteal phase was. I didn't know what, I didn't know any of these things. And so
Yeah.
you're not alone if you're listening. Totally not alone. And I agree, sex education, it just needs to be so much better. And luckily, so I have actually worked with teens as well. So kind of to dive
Cool.
into your question, I'll start with the teen part since we're talking about that. I've worked with teens as well. There's a teen fem program and specific slide deck that, yes, teaches teens how to work with their bodies. And if you want the sex education piece, we can touch on that. But also just empowering girls to know about their phases and even just, like maybe you're crankier this time of the month, or maybe, just like it's normal.
Yeah.
You're not crazy. This is the certain cycle you're in or the certain phase of your cycle, and it's totally normal. And that in of itself is so empowering, or it was for me at least. Like
Yeah.
I get much more anxious during these days. And so like, yes, there's also a teen fem program, which is great. I've taught a few teens in Colorado Springs in person, which was amazing. Less of my clientele, but I also see women of all ages to answer your question. So I would say my main clientele is women preventing pregnancy in their early 20s, or not early 20s, but in their 20s, who have gotten off birth control. I do have a few clients in their 30s as well, but gotten off birth control, either want to regulate out their cycles for pregnancy one day, or just aren't having sex and want to regulate their cycles, also want to prevent pregnancy, or in relationships. I learned this when I was in a committed relationship and it was effective. So yeah, I would say my main
Yeah.
clientele is women preventing pregnancy, but also getting pregnant. And then I see clients online and in person. So really dependent. Some women prefer to have that in-person connection. And I'm in Costa Rica right now, but I'll be in Colorado a little bit this fall. So if you're listening, but subtle plug. But I'm also pre-recording my courses, which I'm really excited for. I always send out my courses anyways, but I'm really excited about this course platform because you can reference it forever, lifetime
Mm.
membership, but also I'm going to add resources you can download. I'm going to add meditations for different phases cycles. So I'm really excited about that aspect, kind of like a little cycle hub for women. And then obviously the education as well.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, to your point, none of this has to be about pregnancy necessarily either, just knowing about your cycle. When I was part of a networking group up in Monument, and we had somebody come speak to us who she schedules her work month based on her cycle because she knows when her energy is going to be the best and the worst. And I mean, realizing, oh, I'm starving this week and I feel like I'm eating everything. And then the next week, oh, I'm not eating as much. And it's always assumed like we're moodier when we are PMSing. Well, that might not be true for you. That could be, it might be a different week of the month that you're feeling shitty.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's so empowering, whether it's anything to do with pregnancy prevention or getting pregnant or whatever, just for women to learn about these cycles. And then you also are just more empowered if something seems off, if something's wrong, like because we could go into the whole struggles of healthcare in general, but you're just more empowered as a human being all around.
Totally, totally, yeah. 100%. And even, yeah, like the misconception of your period being late, being able to track ovulation can actually give you the peace of mind. Your period's not late, you just ovulated later, you know? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, not to get into details, but tracking your cycle can get, yeah, it can be so empowering in so many ways. Whether that's
Yeah.
cycle tracking, whether that's eating for your cycle and just knowing where you're at to
Mm.
even just help with simple things such as PMS. You know, there's so many ways that our society was created around the 24-hour hormone cycle of men, right? But women is that more 28 day, which doesn't have to be. There's a window there, more so 28 or 24 to 36 days. There's a variability, but 28, you know, is that mean we're
Mm-hmm.
given of women's hormone cycles, you know, and how to work with it
Yeah.
instead. Yeah.
Yeah. You just said something that sparked something and I don't remember now. But
The 24-hour
yeah,
men's hormone cycle, maybe. No.
yeah. Well, I mean, and the struggles of like, just especially entrepreneurs too, like realizing there's weeks out of the month you just don't feel as empowered to do marketing, or you don't feel, or you do feel more empowered to do the nitty-gritty stuff. I will say, if I never, we are not expecting to have any more children beyond this, and if I never have to track ovulation ever again, um, that will be lovely because, oh my goodness, learning about that was a whole nother thing. It's just, there's so much to it that we are not educating
Hmm.
girls on, women on. I mean, I'm 35 and it took until now for me to really feel like I have even a surface level grasp on my body.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Costa Rica though.
Yeah. Totally.
Um, when you and I first like really, really connected, you were getting ready to leave for Costa Rica.
Okay.
Um, how did you end up in Costa Rica? Talk to us about how long you're spending there. I know you're not quite sure right now, but what drove you to wanting to be there? What are you doing while you're there?
Yeah.
Give us the lowdown on the nomad life.
Yeah, totally. So again, one of those long story shorts. 2 years ago, more or less. So I was working in tech. I was a software implementation manager for about 6.5 years. Didn't love it, but the stability, financial, healthcare, all
Mhm.
of those things. I just was very in it for those reasons, to be honest. But I was kind
Yeah.
of finding ways out for years, and I was teaching yoga on the side, etc. I actually went through a really bad breakup almost 3 years ago now. And then my grandma had died just over 2 years now. And she was a big foundation in my upbringing. And so those two things really rocked me, but then it ended up being kind of a beautiful thing in the end. So my grandpa, once my grandma passed, wanted to drive to Alaska for the 10th time. He had driven there 9 times before, but he wanted to do it one last time. He's 86. And he kind of asked me to help him. My job wouldn't let me take a month off to help him. So I quit my job and I'm like, maybe I'll go back after, maybe I won't. We'll kind of see what happens. But yeah, I never went back. But before the Alaska thing happened, I found this yoga trade opportunity in Costa Rica. There's a website called Yoga Trade. And I found this place called Yoga Farm down here. It's at the end of the road in southern Costa Rica. It's super far away from so much, but it's beautiful in that regard. So that's why I came down here the first time in 2023. Came down here for 5 weeks and then met a bunch of people, met kind of a little community, met the owner of a different kind of resort down here. He asked me to return and teach yoga down here last year. So that's what brought me down the second year for a longer chunk. I won't go into the story, but actually, that place ended up shutting down a month into me being down here.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, which kind of rocked it. But I found ways to kind of still stay down because I loved it so much, and it worked out. And then ended up meeting my boyfriend. He's a local down here. And then we were actually supposed to spend a year in Peru. I got a yoga job in Peru, teaching yoga, but also doing marketing for a resort there. That didn't end up working out, but we spent 3 months there. And then I was kind of like, do I want to go back to the US? Not really. Costa Rica's kind of my home now with my friends and my boyfriend. So then we came back down here and yeah, I'm not really sure. I have the retreat in August and I'm excited to see some family. My grandpa's still alive. And so I'll come back and then probably come back to Costa Rica after. But yeah, what
Yeah.
I'm doing down here, I'm doing some online stuff still, spending some time creating that fertility course I talked about, learning how to surf. I am teaching some yoga classes down here more pertaining to like surf rehab and stuff, which has been cool. A little bit of babysitting here and there, to be honest, but
Yeah.
it's great. It's amazing down here. So,
What do you love about it? It's very high up on my bucket list. I have not made it to Costa Rica yet, but
well, you'll have
what do
to
you
come
love about it?
down.
I
Um,
know, I know.
It's just the lifestyle, really. Like, there's no work-life hustle culture. There's no, like, like you really can only schedule one thing a day because it will end up taking longer because X, Y, and Z happens. Like it's dirt roads. Maybe your car breaks down. Maybe you run into someone who wants to cook you lunch. Like it's just a very slow. It's just a great lifestyle. They have
Yeah.
a slogan, a saying, Pura Vida, which is like pure life. And it really is that. And just like eating locally and the things that matter. And it's just great. Waking up with the sun, going to sleep with kind of the sun. Like I just love it down here. I can feel my nervous system like, oh, when I'm here, which is a
Yeah.
great feeling.
What was it like? I mean, I know you went back and forth a little bit, but what was it like relocating your life to Costa Rica? What was it like knowing one that you were closing this chapter and living full time in Colorado, or at least pausing the chapter for an indefinite amount of time, but also the actual process of, I remember I remember you like selling off like everything before you left, but what was like both like the actual masculine energy of moving, but also the feminine energy of what was it like moving into this new part of your life?
Right. So I think I was in such a pivotal point in my life that it was just like catapulting me. Like I felt like I had no choice almost in like such a great way. And so, yeah, I sold most of my stuff in Colorado. I have a little closet in my parents' house still, but not a lot. But the thing with me is I also just knew I wasn't going to be in Colorado. I grew up in Colorado. It was great for so many ways, but kind of just living where you grew up syndrome. It was
Yeah.
great to me, but I had outgrown it in so many capacities. And so it's like, yes, I think Costa Rica is this new home, but if it's not, I don't think Colorado is. And so being able to sell those things, it just felt like Marie Kondo. I just also felt so free to be able to make these other decisions. Just
Yeah.
energetically, I felt a lot lighter. So it was terrifying. I had lived in that condo in Colorado Springs, yeah, for 5.5 years. It was terrifying, but it was great. And then I brought my dog also, which was a feat in of itself, but it's actually simpler at the end. It was just kind of the unknown primarily. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing. I feel you on like I was born in Maine, grew up in
yes.
Texas, moved back to Maine, and I mean Maine will always have a very special place in my heart, but I'll never I don't think, we never know what the universe is going to put in our way, but I don't see myself ever living in Maine full time again. And
Mhm.
I remember when I went through a horrible breakup,
Mhm.
and I decided I was moving to Colorado. I remember my brother telling me that my mom had gone to my dad and was like, Jen's talking about moving to Colorado. Jen's like, do you really think she's going to move? And my dad's reaction was, of course she's going to leave. Like, of course she is, because it's time. Like, I was never meant to stay there forever. And we actually got this big itch. Last year, I knew we were going to move, and I thought my husband and I might leave Colorado. We ended up just moving into a house. And I was just actually just this morning, we have a 5 bedroom house, a huge backyard. One, it made it so us getting pregnant made sense. We have space, but also I was outside watching my dogs run around, and it was such a sense of peace. And last year I knew we were ready for this new chapter. I just didn't know. We thought about Portland, Oregon. We thought about the East Coast. But it was just a matter that it was time for more space and more breathing room. Um,
Mhm.
it is interesting living in the Springs versus Monument. I won't lie. It's a little we're right on the edge of some interesting areas of the city for sure.
Yeah, monumental
Um,
killer.
yeah, yeah, it it's funny because it's really quiet during the day here. That was the weirdest thing. I actually could not work. My first Monday here, it was so quiet, it was deafening, and I didn't realize how many sounds there were in the apartment complex. And now it's like it's really quiet during the day, but at night we have street racers that we can hear on all the major roads around us. And there's more crime here than there was in Monument for sure.
Yeah.
But we all have such a higher level of peace living here.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is like, I don't know, I've been coming into my nervous system more and like how does my nervous system feel here? And like I say like Colorado isn't my home anymore, but like it's a great place for so many people. And like so it sounds
Yeah.
like for you like come like just going with the flow also, like when you follow where life is kind of pushing you, like how does your nervous system feel? It feels good. Okay, I'm meant to be here. And
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't make sense logically sometimes, maybe it does and that's great, but like yeah, just how does my nervous system feel has been so life changing to me. Like as I navigate these things, especially because I do struggle with anxiety. So moving around a lot can be a little unsettling, but okay, like just sitting with
Yeah.
yourself, how do you actually feel?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge because, like, for instance, my husband had a job offer to move to Portland, Oregon. On
Okay.
paper, it would have been a lot more money,
Mhm.
but I knew that what I mean, we have five cats and two dogs, and like finding somewhere we could live comfortably and are not hiding pets was a big deal to me because I did that for so long. Like where we live now, we're renting from a friend. She knows how many pets we have. Like that alone relieves so much anxiety for me. But
Mhm.
also the idea, I mean, Portland, Oregon's beautiful. The Pacific Northwest is beautiful, but the idea of moving somewhere where I think I knew one or two people and I knew my husband would then be working even more hours, there'd be more pressure on me at home. I'd have no support. And yes, you build community. I have a beautiful community. I mean, I've been in Colorado almost 7 years and I have a beautiful community here, so I know I would build it somewhere else. But the
Mhm.
idea of starting over on that, yeah, my nervous system was in overdrive at the thought of it. Whereas moving here, our rental money isn't going to a corporation anymore. It's going to a person that we love. We can
Mhm.
do what we want. She doesn't care. And we're not hiding the pets.
Mhm.
And my daughter and I can walk to like, it's just what brings you peace. My word for 2025 is peace. And
Totally.
I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. And peace that doesn't mean like yoga, meditation, peace necessarily, but like what creates an overall feeling of peace long term. And that's what I'm going after all the time.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it sounds like similar thing to, yeah, nervous system, what creates that peace
Yeah.
in your body. I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were a Portland offer, but I'm glad. It sounds like you guys made the right decision.
Yeah, every once in a while we're like, the money would have put a little less pressure on my business of my right, but I'm like, I refuse to live for I just had this conversation too. I just refuse to live for money. Like we want to live comfortably. I want to be able to travel.
Mhm.
But like I refuse to live for a dollar amount. Like that's just not where it's at.
I love
All
that.
right. What do you love about I can hear birds behind you every once in a while and I kind of love it, by the way. I'm like there's got to be so much just all around you all the time.
Oh, much.
But
Yes.
so cool. What do you love about being an entrepreneur in general? You have all of these different, we're very similar in that, lots of different areas of interest, but the overarching, what do you love about being an entrepreneur and getting versus this tech background that you had that was the more secure option?
Right. Yeah, I think I've always been kind of entrepreneurial, just the idea of working for myself and following, things that work, like kind of that flow we were just talking about. Like I do have so many different things that I do, but I love that because I'm able to kind of fit in where I'm needed in the moment, if that makes sense. So I think that's really cool because when I was working that corporate job, like obviously I had a specific job title and a specific hat most of the time. And so yeah, just being able to flow more and how can I help this person, whether it's through yoga or fertility or a combination of both, or maybe,
Yeah.
like I was kind of helping my friend the other day with her yoga business on the marketing side because I do have a little bit of that background, just being able to have the availability and like the jurisdiction over myself to do what fits right and maybe what's making more money or maybe what feels better that day. So I think that piece or even the cycle syncing part, like you were talking about. Most weeks I'm better at it than other weeks, and especially being an entrepreneur, like if you're busy one week and you can't schedule around it, you don't have a team to back you up sometimes, maybe you do, but
Yeah.
yeah, so the cycle syncing aspect has also just been a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, people like you and I, where we have multiple passions that we can shift between. I mean, my Q1 this year was very slow. There's a lot of turmoil because of what was happening politically, that people just didn't know what was happening next financially. So I had a bunch of clients that had to pause their contracts because they just weren't sure where funding was coming from. But this has been the first year that I didn't panic over it. And I've worked a lot on money mindset. I've shared it multiple times, but my ex left me in $76,000 in credit card debt. So I have a lot of money trauma. But this was the first year that I just took a deep breath and I was able to pivot. And I signed up with a few VA agencies. So getting back to my roots of more of the VA work, I got signed on by three. And now
Nice.
I have 21 clients again, like out of nowhere. And, but having, like, accepting that it is okay to be an entrepreneur, to have a business, but have lots of different avenues of how you make money, I think is so important because it gives you even more flexibility. Like for me, it meant doing more design work and doing more hourly work because I don't
Mhm.
love hourly work. But it was there for me when I needed it to catch me. Or
Yeah.
for you, it's like, you might have a quarter where there's a bunch of people coming to you for fertility stuff. And then next, it might be an offering to do a retreat somewhere. Maybe it's in Peru. Um, so like I remember a friend of mine had a really hard time at first combining her two passions. But I think as entrepreneurs, we get to decide what fits under our umbrella of what our business is. And you don't have to pick one thing. That whole like pick your niche and like only focus on that one thing, it's just not practical. And
Yeah.
especially as a creative entrepreneur, you're gonna feel boxed in. Like that's my
Totally.
biggest tip always is like it's okay to be multi-passionate. In fact, I think it's better, to
Totally,
be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah, and for me, a couple years ago, I really dove into like my core values, and authenticity is my biggest core value. And so for me, it's like if I have these different facets and I'm not opening up all of them, I feel almost inauthentic, because I do
Yeah.
have these passions in different avenues. So why not? Why not have them all
Yeah.
open? Do you
Yeah.
know your core values by chance?
My number one is alignment.
Yeah.
Everything like it's that's with clients, that's with work, that's with, I mean, I said no to 3 clients this week because the work I just immediately knew. And again, tuning into nervous system and how my body reacts to opportunities is it in a line or is it not? And authenticity is right up there too.
Mhm.
Um, and I think once alignment and authenticity, once you really lean into those, your business might build in a different way than you expect, but you build a stronger
Totally.
business all
Totally.
around.
Yeah, because then you just open yourself up to those opportunities that do align instead of trying to force something that doesn't.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that.
Well, the question I like to ask towards the end of every podcast
Mhm.
is what is the fire that keeps you going when entrepreneurship gets hard?
Ooh, that is a great question. I would say just my clients. Like, I love to go back and read testimonials I've had to just, like, this is why I do it, to help people. And this is a positive that I get out of being an entrepreneur versus working a corporate job. I feel like I'm actually helping people on a bigger scale versus making some rich man richer or X, Y, and Z. And so
Oh,
I would definitely say the clients and how I've helped women at the end of the day and men, but women primarily with the fertility and et cetera. But
beautiful. Well, Jordan, how can people find you if they're interested in your retreat, if they're interested in fertility, if they're interested in any of the many things that you do? What is the best way to find you, connect with you, all of that?
yes, thank you. I would say the easiest way is just my website. I keep it pretty up to date. My retreats are on there, my Instagram, my email address, etc. ivwildwellness.com.
Well, I will make sure to link that along with your Instagram and all the other links you gave me. Anything else you want to share today?
We talked about so much and I loved it. I feel like we could talk for so many more hours
For
also.
sure.
But I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm
No.
so glad that the universe aligned us to cross paths. And I love chatting about all these things. So thank you so much and congratulations. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully we can see each other. I know I'll be in Maine for my baby shower in Maine when you have your retreat, but hopefully while you're here, we can connect for coffee or yoga or something. Yeah, awesome. Well, for all of you listening, if you want to find out more about what I do, or if you're interested in being on the podcast, you can find me on Instagram at Life Jen's Way, or my website is jensway.com, or my email is jen@jensway.com. 2 N's on Jen always. Thank you so much for taking the time, Jordan. I really appreciate it. I think you're my first guest to record internationally. I was trying to
Ooh.
think. I think so. So that's cool. And eventually, once I have 2 children and get that life figured out, I'll have to come see you in Costa Rica
Yes,
for
I
sure.
love
Yeah,
it. Thank you.
awesome. Everyone listening, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next time on Your Next Business Bestie. Have a great day.